another edition of your Chamber at Work, a program focused on business and events throughout our 14-member communities. My name is Beverly Donovan. I am the president of the Greater Haverhill Chamber of Commerce, and I am happy to introduce you to a few of our guests today. Our first guest is Janine Murphy from Emmaus Incorporated. She is the executive director, and Emmaus is a Haverhill-based nonprofit that has been helping homeless people rebuild their lives and reach their fullest potential since 1987. Emmaus serves more than 4,000 adults and children last year through its vast array of programs and services, permanent housing, emergency shelter, lots of different things. So I'm going to just ask a few questions. We'll try to get some more information. But why don't you explain a little bit more about Emmaus and how do people end up at Emmaus?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having us here today. We appreciate it.
Happy to have you.
Having this time to chat a little bit. And you did a great job explaining the agency, so I don't have to do too much, so thank you. But a question that's always asked us is, how do people become homeless? And what I've learned over the past 30 years working at Emmaus is that the folks that come to our door are people who have friends and families that may have the desire to help them, but don't have the means. What I mean by that in general is that many of the folks that come to our door do not have families and friends that could take them in. They may be living in subsidized housing. A large thing that has happened over the past 30, 40 years is the advent of elderly housing complexes. And so if your family or your parents are living in elderly housing and you become homeless with your family, you can only stay there for a couple of weeks. The other thing that brings people many, many times to our door is illnesses. A lot of times illness or severe illness of a child where the mother has to leave their job to take care of the child and eventually loses their housing. So the difference, people always want to know the difference. Well, how come that person's homeless and I'm not, perhaps, if you went through a bad economic crisis, is that many of us are lucky to have family and friends that could take us in if we lost our housing. So that really makes a big difference.
Sure. I actually had never considered that about the elderly housing, and that's a really interesting point. You do see a lot of that going up. So how does Emmaus approach working with their clients?
Well, a good analogy that we say to the folks when they first come in, obviously families arrive at our door, they're very scared, they've lost everything, is that they're still in the driver's seat. You know, the parents, because a family becomes homeless does not mean that you're a bad parent, first of all. It's an economic situation. So the parent still remains in the driver's seat, and we're there to help and support them. So using kind of today's analogy, I usually say we're like a GPS system for the family. So the mom or the father is in the driver's seat, and we're there sitting next to you, telling you where the obstacles are, how to connect to this, don't take that road, you might want to go down this road. So we work to support the family through case management, through referrals, through housing search. If they need to, obviously their first priority is making sure their children stay in school. And our job is to help them find their road or their pathway home. And so for everyone coming in our door, their main goal is to leave and to find housing, permanent housing, and to not obviously come back again. So we try to get people hooked up with job training programs. But kind of a misnomer, a lot of the folks who stay with us are educated, have a long history of having a good job, and like during this last economic recession in 2008, 2009, a lot of people lost jobs that they'll never get back again. So a lot of those folks had to take reduction in housing and take reduction in what they were doing for a living, and will never get back to that income level again. So we did see a lot of people in different socioeconomic situations become homeless and come in through our doors. So our job is to support people and help them find a way home through compassion, through services, and just being there to support one another. The mission of Emmaus is really to help each individual find the highest level of dignity they can. So for each individual and each family, that's going to be a little bit different. And we try to look at each person coming to our door as if that was someone that you loved, your family, and how would you want them to be treated? And I believe like that's the hallmark of all of us living on this earth today, is to have that dignity and have that outreached hand to care for one another.
Right. Well, like you said, it only takes one thing to go wrong, and
that's right.
And you can end up there. And I really do like the idea of relating it to the GPS, because you're going to find yourself someplace where you have no experience, and you need that level of expertise to help you navigate that. So I think that's really interesting. We have a couple more minutes, but why don't you tell me a little bit about some of the projects that Emmaus is working on, new projects?
Okay, great. One of our new projects we've done for the past couple of years, which we're really proud of, is the creation of the Duville Center for Social Justice. That's on Winter
beautiful.
Street. Thank you. Right now, it's blooming all kinds of tulips, so drive by. We also do give tours twice a month. I wanted to squeeze that in. So if anybody's interested and wants to come and see what's going on at Emmaus, look up on our website. We have 2 tours that we do every month, and if you had a group, we would certainly make arrangements to have a special tour for you if you wanted. But the Duville Center, we have several things going on there. We have the Empowerment Project, which is for the parents. And we also have the Explorers Project, which is for the children. So our Explorers Project runs like 3 to 4 times a year, and where we're doing through Vista volunteers that come in. They've actually helped create the entire program, and it's very detailed. We do all kinds of wonderful things with the children. So, and we do a special one for the summertime. So the first thing that a child gets asked when they go to school in September is,
what'd you do all
Right.
summer?
So it's very difficult for a child that's homeless to answer that question. So we've created this wonderful program, which is, again, all carried on by volunteers. So that might be an opportunity. Somebody out in there might be interested in getting involved. They could certainly come in and help with the Explorers Project. So our children go everywhere. They go to museums. They do all kinds of incredible scientific projects. They do theater. They do dance. It's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
And then the Empowerment Project we have for the adults. We do things like budget buddies. We do financial literacy training. We do job training, job resume writing and interviewing skills. But we also do some other things like yoga and meditation and developing goals, because we really want the moms to take this breath right now to figure out really what do I want to do in my life. And again, kind of going back on our experience of 30 years, one of the other things we learned, when a family is in crisis and they're staying at our family house, it's really insurmountable to then pile on, if they don't have an active job, to say, why don't you go into a job training program?
Yeah.
You're worried about where you're going to eat, where you're going to sleep next. It's not the time really to get involved in job training, so we're looking at that now in a different way to say, well, this is a time for you to really kind of explore who you are, what you want for your family, so what your goals might be, what kinds of things you can continue on with your family after you leave the shelter that might be very inexpensive. Like one of the things we do is we have a movie night with the moms. And we get really interesting movies that will generate some conversation afterwards, and let them know, after you move on, this is something you can do very, very inexpensively with your friends. Just have people over, have a cup of coffee or some tea or whatever, and sit and have like a movie club.
Just have some social.
Yeah, because our mothers never think about
Downtime.
that. When you first ask them, what do you do for fun? They don't know what you're talking about. They don't have time for that.
Right.
And it's so important, as you know, being a mother, to have time for yourself. The better you are, the better you feel about yourself, the better the whole family will feel.
Yeah. And I was lucky enough to go over and get a tour of the center, and I was struck by how bright and cheerful it is, and very creative. There's artwork, and there's all sorts of, it just seems like a very welcoming and happy place to be.
And that's what we want.
Yeah.
Because
I think you've succeeded.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, you figure people who come into the shelter, they're very depressed. They feel like they've failed as parents. And we're trying to give them another and a different way of a step up.
Yeah.
So that's a really supportive place. It's really just theirs. It's not, there's no children there. So it's also nice to have that breath.
Right.
Another thing I wanted to mention is we do this program, which we've been very successful at, called Diversion. So we're up at the local DHCD office, Department of Housing and Community Development office in Lawrence. And we see families who are coming to their door a few days before they've become homeless. And we will try to divert them either by stabilizing their housing where they are or finding them another apartment right away so they don't become homeless and have to come into shelter.
Yeah.
Last year, we diverted over 300 families, Bev, from coming into the Emmaus Family House.
That's great.
So far this year, has been around 176 families we've diverted from coming into shelter.
Wow.
So,
Such an important
yeah.
mission that you have over there. For folks at home that might be interested in learning about how to support Emmaus or get involved with Emmaus, could you give us your website, your web address?
Sure, our website is www.emmausinc, all one word, .org. And our address is 127 House Street, that's where the main office is. And our phone number is 978-241-3400.
All right.
And, volunteers, I mean, we rely, over 700 volunteers help us out every year. So anything people want to do, from meal prep to doing something with the kids, doing a one-time thing, or something you want to do every week. There's all different ways to get involved.
Sure. You do many fundraisers as well. Well, thank you for coming in today. It was great
Thank
to
you.
hear about some of the new things you're doing. And
Well, thank you very much for having us. We're very, very grateful to be here.
well, thank you for coming out today. It was great hearing about all the wonderful programs you have going on, some of the new initiatives, and about all the great work that you're doing to meet your mission. So thank you. When we come back, we'll be talking with Jenna Reyes from the New Hampshire Fisher Cats.